Welcome back to another inspiring episode of Journey to Success. I'm Emily Carter, your host, and today we're tackling a topic that's universal yet deeply personal: facing failure with resilience. Joining us is an extraordinary guest, Dr. Thomas Bennett, a resilience coach, best-selling author, and motivational speaker who's helped thousands transform setbacks into stepping stones. Thomas, it's an absolute privilege to have you with us today.
Thank you, Emily. I'm truly honored to be here and dive into a subject that's not just about bouncing back, but about growing stronger through life's toughest moments.
I'm so excited to hear your insights. Failure is something we all encounter, yet it can feel so heavy. Thomas, let's start broadly. Why is learning to face failure so crucial for success, and how does it shape our journey?
That's a powerful question, Emily, and it really gets to the heart of why this topic matters. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's a vital part of it. Every setback, every misstep, carries lessons that refine your skills, clarify your goals, and build your resilience. Facing failure well means seeing it as a teacher, not a verdict. It's what separates those who give up from those who rise stronger, ready to seize their dreams. I think of someone like Thomas Edison, who famously failed thousands of times before perfecting the light bulb. Edison didn't see those attempts as failures, but as discoveries. He said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That mindset turned a string of flops into a world-changing invention. Early in my own journey, I was a startup consultant in Seattle, and my first venture crashed spectacularly. Lost investments, disappointed clients, the works. I felt like a fraud. But studying Edison and others taught me to reframe failure as feedback. I pivoted to coaching, using those lessons to help others, and now I'm living my purpose. Facing failure doesn't just build success. It builds character, courage, and clarity for the road ahead.
That's such a profound perspective, Thomas. Failure as a teacher. Edison's story is so illuminating. You mentioned your own startup crash. Can you walk us through how someone can start facing failure constructively, especially when it feels crushing?
Absolutely, Emily. The first step is to embrace failure as part of growth. Too many of us see it as a personal flaw, but it's just data, information about what didn't work and why. I draw inspiration from J.K. Rowling, who faced rejection from 12 publishers for Harry Potter while struggling as a single mom. Rowling could have quit, but she saw each rejection as a chance to refine her pitch. She said, "It is impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all." That tenacity birthed a global phenomenon. When my startup failed, I was devastated, creditors calling, confidence shot. I felt like I'd let everyone down. But I started journaling what went wrong. Overambitious projections, poor communication. That clarity showed me where to grow. I took a course on leadership, which sparked my coaching career. I coached a client named Sarah, a graphic designer whose first business tanked, leaving her in debt and doubting her talent. We analyzed her setbacks, weak marketing, rushed projects, and she relaunched with a tighter plan. Today, her studio thrives, serving major brands. Embracing failure means asking, "What can I learn?" instead of "Why me?" Another step is to depersonalize failure. It's not about your worth. It's about one attempt that didn't land. I learned this from Michael Jordan, who was cut from his high school basketball team, yet became the greatest player ever. Jordan said, "I've failed over and over, and that's why I succeed." He didn't let one coach's no define him. I used this when a speaking gig bombed early on: awkward delivery, sparse applause. Instead of thinking, "I'm terrible," I thought, "That talk needs work." I hired a coach, practiced relentlessly, and my next keynote got a standing ovation. Failure's a moment, not your identity.
I love that mindset, Thomas. Failure as data, not destiny. Rowling and Jordan's stories make it so vivid. But what about when failure feels overwhelming, like it's too big to move past? How do you rebuild from that?
Oh, Emily, those moments hit hard, when failure feels like a tidal wave. The key is to break it down and rebuild slowly. Big setbacks can paralyze, so focus on small, actionable steps to regain momentum. One tool is grieve, then grow. Allow yourself to feel the pain, anger, sadness, but set a time limit, then shift to action. I draw from Oprah Winfrey, who faced countless failures, abuse, career rejections, early show flops. Oprah grieved losses but always pivoted to growth, saying, "Turn your wounds into wisdom." Her resilience built an empire. When my startup collapsed, I was gutted, savings gone, reputation bruised. I gave myself a week to mourn, then asked, "What's one step forward?" I updated my resume, which led to consulting gigs, then coaching. That gradual rebuild restored my confidence. I coached a client named Michael, a restaurateur whose diner failed during a recession, leaving him bankrupt. He was crushed, thinking he'd never recover. We set a grieving period, then took one step. He cooked for friends, rediscovering his love for food. That led to catering, then a food truck that's now a local hit. Small steps turn despair into possibility. Another strategy is seek perspective. Talk to mentors or study others' failures to see you're not alone. I learned this from Steve Jobs, fired from Apple, the company he built, at 30. Jobs called it awful tasting medicine, but used it to launch Pixar and Next, later returning to revolutionize Apple. His perspective shift inspired me post-startup. I joined a mastermind group, hearing others' setbacks, which normalized mine. Michael leaned on Jobs' story, connecting with chefs who'd failed. Their advice helped him pivot. Perspective shrinks failure's shadow, showing it's just one chapter, not the book.
That's so powerful. Thomas, grieve, then grow, with Jobs and Michael showing the way. You've mentioned incredible figures like Edison and Oprah. Are there other famous examples whose resilience through failure inspires you?
Oh, definitely, Emily. The world is rich with stories of failure turned triumph. Take Walt Disney, whose first animation studio went bankrupt, and he was told Mickey Mouse would flop. Disney faced rejection after rejection, yet he persisted, saying, "All the adversity I've had in my life has strengthened me." That grit built an entertainment empire. I leaned on Disney's story when my first book pitch was rejected 20 times. Instead of quitting, I revised, and it landed a deal. I coached a client named Olivia, a fashion designer whose debut line bombed. Disney's persistence inspired her to refine her craft. She relaunched, and her designs now sell nationally. Another is Serena Williams, who's lost high-stakes matches but never let defeat define her. After a crushing 2004 French Open loss, she trained harder, winning 23 Grand Slams. Serena said, "Every defeat is a lesson to come back stronger." I used her mindset when a workshop I led flopped. Only 5 attendees showed. I studied feedback, retooled, and my next one sold out. I worked with a client named Ethan, a tech founder whose app crashed on launch. Serena's resilience pushed him to debug and relaunch. It's now got 100,000 users. Then there's Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, facing countless setbacks in his fight against apartheid. Mandela saw failure as fuel, saying, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." His vision sustained me when I doubted my coaching path after early clients quit. I kept going, building a practice that's now global. These icons show failure isn't a stop sign. It's a detour to greatness.
Those stories are so uplifting, Thomas. Disney, Serena, Mandela, they all turned failure into fuel. What about the fear of failing again? How do we keep taking risks after a big setback?
That fear of failing again is a real hurdle, Emily, because it whispers, "What if it happens all over?" The answer is to reframe risk as opportunity. Failure teaches you what success can't. It sharpens your instincts. I draw from Sarah Blakely, Spanx founder, who was raised to see failure as trying, not losing. Her dad asked nightly, "What did you fail at today?" That mindset led her to pitch Spanx despite rejections, building a billion-dollar brand. Blakely says, "Failure is not the outcome. Failure is not trying." Her perspective helped me risk launching my coaching business post-startup collapse, fearing another flop, but trusting the lessons I'd learned. I coached a client named Rachel, a writer whose first novel was panned, making her terrified to publish again. We studied Blakely's approach. Rachel wrote short stories for small journals, testing the waters. Her next novel hit bestseller lists. Another tool is incremental risks. Don't leap blindly. Take calculated steps. I learned this from Elon Musk, whose SpaceX faced near-fatal rocket failures. Musk risked again, tweaking designs gradually, and landed NASA contracts. I used incremental risks after my workshop flop, testing new formats with small groups before scaling. Rachel did the same, sharing drafts with trusted peers before submitting. Also, visualize success alongside failure. Imagine both outcomes to reduce fear's grip. I worked with a client named Chris, a chef whose restaurant failed, leaving him scared to open another. We looked at Gordon Ramsay, who lost a Michelin star but visualized rebuilding, earning more. Chris practiced visualizing a new cafe succeeding and failing with a plan to recover. He opened a bistro that's now a local gem. Reframing risk, taking small steps, and visualizing outcomes let you move forward with courage, not dread.
That's such a fresh take, Thomas. Risk as opportunity. Blakely's upbringing and Musk's persistence make it so tangible. How do we sustain resilience long-term, especially when failures keep piling up?
Sustaining resilience is like training for a marathon. It takes consistent effort to go the distance, especially when failures stack up. One habit is reflective journaling. After a setback, write what happened, what you learned, and how you'll grow. I learned this from Maya Angelou, who journaled through failures to find meaning, fueling her poetry. I journal weekly, dissecting flops, like a client who left early on. It showed me I needed clearer communication, improving my coaching. I coached a client named Anna, a teacher whose grant proposals kept failing. Journaling revealed she rushed applications, she slowed down, and her next grant funded a school program. Reflection turns pain into progress. Another key is building a support network. Surround yourself with encouragers who see your potential. Oprah leaned on mentors like Maya Angelou to navigate failures. I joined a coaching circle after my startup, gaining perspective from peers. I worked with a client named Lauren, a nurse whose promotion bids failed, crushing her confidence. Inspired by Oprah's network, she found a mentor who guided her to a leadership role. Support makes failure feel less lonely. Also, celebrate effort, not just outcomes. Acknowledge trying, regardless of results. Serena Williams celebrates training milestones, not just trophies, keeping her resilient. I reward myself for risks, like a dinner after a tough pitch, win or lose. I coached a client named Mark, an entrepreneur whose pitches flopped. Celebrating his effort, research, delivery, kept him going. His latest venture secured funding. Finally, reconnect with your why. Failure stings less when tied to purpose. Mandela's purpose, freedom, sustained him. My why, helping others, pulls me through setbacks. These habits, journaling, support, celebration, purpose, build resilience that lasts a lifetime.
Those are such vibrant tools, Thomas. Journaling like Angelou, celebrating like Serena, purpose like Mandela. It's a roadmap for endurance. As we wrap up, what's one final piece of advice for listeners ready to face failure head-on today?
My biggest advice is to take one brave step past failure now. Setbacks don't define you. Your response does. Think of Abraham Lincoln, who lost multiple elections and businesses before becoming president. He said, "My great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with your failure." For me, it was that first coaching session after my startup sank, proving I could rise again. One last story. I coached a single dad named Brian, a carpenter whose shop failed during a downturn. He thought his dreams were over. We looked at Fred Rogers, who faced rejected shows but kept creating, touching millions with Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Brian took one step, building a custom chair for a neighbor. It led to commissions, then a new workshop teaching kids carpentry. If Brian can rebuild, so can you. Pick one action today, retry a pitch, learn a skill, ask for feedback. That step turns failure into your foundation for success.
What a beautiful note to end on, Thomas. Brian's story, alongside legends like Lincoln and Rogers, shows failure is just a chapter, not the story. Thank you for sharing such profound wisdom and practical steps. I know our listeners are ready to embrace setbacks with courage.
Thank you, Emily, and to all the listeners. I hope you feel empowered to see failure as fuel for your greatest victories.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Journey to Success. If this conversation sparked resilience in you, and I'm betting it did, please hit that subscribe button to catch every empowering episode. Share this with someone needing a lift after a setback, and join us next time for more tools to fuel your journey. Until then, keep rising stronger.